It was a chilly spring evening in Bath, the kind where the air is crisp but filled with promise. I remember every detail, down to the soft glow of the fairy lights strung around the pergola at Kingsmead Park. Oliver stood beneath them, holding a small velvet box. My heart thudded in my chest as he dropped to one knee. He didn't need to say much. Just the words, "Marry me, Amelia," were enough to blur my eyes with tears. For years, I had dreamt of this moment, imagined the way he would ask me, and most importantly, how it would feel. And in that moment, it felt right. Completely and utterly right. Oliver had always known how to dazzle. He was charming, with his warm brown eyes and confident smile. A successful architect, always impeccably dressed, always the center of attention without trying too hard. We'd met through mutual friends 3 years ago in Bristol, and from the moment he bought me a cup of tea instead of a cocktail at the bar, I'd known he was different. The proposal, I thought, sealed it. He'd arranged everything, our closest friends hidden nearby to celebrate, my mother flown in from Cornwall as a surprise. He even hired a string quartet. Everything was perfect. Until I looked inside the ring box. It was a classic engagement ring, with a delicate gold band and a single round diamond. Elegant, tasteful, and precisely what I would have picked myself. But as he slid it onto my finger, something caught the light. I tilted it slightly and saw an engraving. 4 tiny words, carved into the inside of the band. "Forever yours, Celeste." My breath caught. Celeste? I masked the jolt that ran through me and looked up at Oliver. He was beaming, waiting for my reaction. I forced a smile and whispered yes, the word tasting like ash on my tongue. The next hour was a blur of hugs and champagne. Everyone cheered. My mother cried. My best friend Grace squeezed my hand, mouthing, "You lucky thing." And through it all, I played the part of the glowing fiancé, while my mind spun with questions. Who was Celeste? Why was her name in my ring? Was it a mistake? A reused ring? An heirloom? Or was it something else? That night, lying in bed beside Oliver in our flat near the Royal Crescent, I stared at the ring. He was fast asleep, one arm flung across me, utterly content. But I couldn't close my eyes. The engraving burned in my mind. I had to know the truth. I slipped out of bed, careful not to wake him, and padded into the lounge. I sat in the dim light, twisting the ring between my fingers. There had to be a logical explanation. There had to be. And just as I reached for my phone to search for a local jeweler, a message notification popped up on the screen. It was from a number I didn't recognize. And it read, "He promised me the same thing." Sleep never came that night. I waited until the first rays of sunlight bled through the curtains before slipping the ring off my finger and tucking it into the drawer of my dressing table. The message from the unknown number haunted me. He promised me the same thing. I stared at it for hours, reading it over and over, dissecting every word, every implication. I didn't reply. Not yet. Instead, I spent the morning moving like a ghost through our flat. I made Oliver his coffee. I kissed him goodbye on the cheek as he left for work. And all the while, my thoughts screamed at me from beneath the surface. Who was she? At noon, I sat on the floor of our wardrobe, pulling out every memory box, photo album, and birthday card we'd ever exchanged. Looking for something, anything, that might hint at a Celeste. A photo tucked behind a frame. A name scribbled in a corner. A note he thought I'd never read. But there was nothing. Until I found an old shoebox beneath a pile of scarves. It wasn't mine. Inside were architectural sketches, half-finished blueprints, and between them, a letter. Folded in 3, yellowed slightly at the edges, and sealed with a faint kiss mark in rose-pink lipstick. I opened it slowly. My darling Oliver. You always said Bath would be our beginning, our home, our escape. Now you're building it, for others, not for us. But I don't blame you. We made our choices. Love always. Celeste. My chest tightened. So she was real. Not a mistake. Not a jeweler's error. A woman. A lover. Someone who once believed in the same dreams he promised me. I sat frozen for a long time, the letter trembling in my hands. I didn't know how to confront him. I didn't know if I even wanted to. What if I opened a door I could never close again? But curiosity can be a dangerous fuel. By late afternoon, I typed a reply to the message. Who are you? The response came quickly. I was engaged to Oliver. 2 years ago. I was Celeste. My blood ran cold. She wasn't just a passing fling. She wasn't a forgotten ex. She had been me, before me. And suddenly, it all made sense, the ring, the letter, the shadow in his eyes whenever the topic of his past came up. I asked her for proof. She sent a picture of them. Smiling. Happy. Her wearing my ring. And then she wrote, he lied to you. Like he lied to me. I sat there, shaking, the weight of betrayal coiling like a serpent in my stomach. I thought I knew the man I was about to marry. I thought we were building a future together. But maybe, just maybe, I was walking into someone else's unfinished story. Then, just as I started to cry, the front door opened. Oliver was home. Early. And I had no time to hide what I'd found. He stood in the doorway, his silhouette outlined by the golden haze of the setting sun, briefcase in hand, and that familiar smile on his lips. But for the first time, I didn't feel warmth. I felt ice. Oliver walked in as if everything was normal. As if the world hadn't just shifted under my feet. Hi, love. You look pale, he said, leaning in to kiss me. I turned my face away, and the kiss landed awkwardly on my cheek. He pulled back, puzzled. Everything all right? I didn't speak. I just held the letter out to him. The one signed by Celeste. His face froze. The change was instant, like a switch had been flicked. The color drained from his cheeks, and he slowly set down his briefcase. Where did you find that? His voice was quieter now. Not angry. Just cautious. In the back of the wardrobe, I replied. Along with your secrets. He sat down heavily on the edge of the sofa, eyes fixed on the floor. I waited. I was going to tell you, he whispered. When? I snapped. After the wedding. After I said I do, with someone else's name engraved on my finger. His hands trembled slightly. I had the ring made a long time ago. For her. But she left, and I couldn't bear to throw it away. I thought I could just give it to you and start over. Start over. With someone else's ring. It was like offering me leftovers from a meal someone else had walked away from. And the message? I asked coldly. She reached out. She said you lied. That you were engaged. That you promised her bath. He finally looked at me, eyes raw. I did. We were together for 5 years. I was going to propose, and then I did. But we fell apart. She left me before we could plan anything. Why? I asked, my voice cracking. He hesitated. Because I was selfish. Ambitious. She said I cared more about building a future on paper than living in the present with her. She left, and I broke. I crossed my arms tightly, trying to hold myself together. So now I'm the replacement. The second chance at your perfect blueprint. No, he said quickly. You're not second to anyone. But I didn't believe him. Not anymore. That night, I didn't sleep beside him. I lay on the sofa, clutching my phone like a lifeline. Celeste hadn't replied again. Maybe she'd said all she needed to say. Maybe she was done with this part of her life. But I wasn't. I couldn't stop wondering, what else was he hiding? The next morning, I got up early. I left him sleeping and took the train to Bath. Alone. I needed to see this place. The city he once promised her. The dream he now shared with me. As I stepped off the train, the crisp morning air hit my skin, and my heart pounded. If the truth was buried somewhere here, I was going to dig it out. Piece by piece. Bath was more beautiful than I had imagined. The cobbled streets shimmered beneath the morning light, and the Georgian architecture stood proud against a sky brushed in pale blue. But I wasn't there for sightseeing. I wandered aimlessly at first, my steps guided more by instinct than purpose, until I found the estate agency Oliver had once mentioned. Ashford and Thorne. Its brass sign gleamed in the sunlight, and something about it sent a chill down my spine. I stepped inside. The receptionist, a kind older woman in a lavender cardigan, looked up with a gentle smile. "Can I help you?" "Yes," I said, trying to sound confident. "I'm looking for information about a property project that was discussed a couple of years ago." My partner, Oliver Langdon, was involved. Her smile faltered ever so slightly. "One moment, please," she said and disappeared into the back. Minutes passed. I stared at the perfectly aligned brochures on the table. New builds. Restorations. Dream homes. Then a man in a suit stepped out. "Miss Rowena," I said. "Rowena Ellis." He nodded. "I'm Gareth Thorne. What is it exactly you'd like to know?" "I want to understand why my fiancé was involved in a project here in Bath he never told me about," I replied calmly. "And why another woman claims he promised her a home here." Gareth gave me a long, searching look. Oliver was ambitious. When he and Celeste came to us, they had big ideas. A townhouse renovation, start to finish. He even drew up designs. It was to be their home. I felt something sink in my chest. "Why didn't it happen?" I asked. Gareth sighed. "They split. After she left, he pulled the project. It never went forward. And no one else has been involved with it since." I asked. "No," he said. "He came back once. Last year. Said he might be interested in revisiting the idea. But alone this time. He looked like a man chasing something that had already slipped away." I thanked him and left the office in a daze. As I walked through the quiet lanes, every stone seemed to whisper something. Dreams lost. Love wasted. Lies spoken beneath golden skies. I ended up at the Royal Crescent. The view was breathtaking. But my heart was heavy. I sat on a bench, watching children run across the grass, their laughter echoing. A woman with a sketchbook captured the skyline in charcoal. Life moved on around me. And for the first time, I saw the truth clearly. I had been invited into someone else's dream. I was expected to build a future on the ashes of another woman's past. But I wasn't a shadow. I wasn't a substitute. That evening, I returned home. Oliver was waiting in the kitchen, his phone untouched, eyes red from sleeplessness. "You went to Bath," he said quietly. "Yes. I should have told you everything from the start." "You should have," I agreed. "I want to make it right." I looked at him. "Then start by telling me the whole truth. No more shadows. No more half-told stories." He nodded. And then he told me something that changed everything. Oliver sat opposite me, his hands clenched together on the table. The silence between us was thick, heavy with things unsaid. "She told you about the ring, didn't she?" he finally said. I nodded. His jaw tensed. "It wasn't supposed to be found." "But it was," I replied coldly. "Engraved with to Celeste, always." He buried his face in his hands. It was hers. I had it made before everything fell apart between us. So why did you give it to me? My voice cracked, fury barely held in check. I didn't mean to. He looked up, his eyes tired. I thought it was gone. When I moved out, I packed everything so fast. The ring box looked the same. I never opened it again. I bought you a new one, but I couldn't find it that day. I panicked. I stared at him, disgusted. So you proposed to me with the wrong ring. With her ring. I wanted to propose to you, he said quietly. But I made a stupid mistake. And now it's all unraveled. There it was, his truth. A mess of negligence, regret and emotion he had buried beneath our carefully crafted life. But I wasn't done. What else haven't you told me, Oliver? He exhaled slowly. Celeste was pregnant. The words hit me like a blow. My ears rang. She miscarried, he said, almost whispering. Just before we were supposed to move into the bathhouse. It broke her. And it broke us. I gripped the edge of the table, trying to process the wave of emotions crashing over me. And you never told me because I wanted to leave it all behind, he said. With you, I thought I had a second chance. A clean start. But there was nothing clean about it, I said. You dragged your past into our future and lied by omission every step of the way. He had no reply. I walked out. I needed air. Space. The evening was darkening. London's streets blurred past me, lights flickering like memories. I found myself in a quiet park, where trees arched like silent sentinels. I sat on a bench, breath shaky, eyes wide open. I thought about the way Oliver had looked at me when we first met. The quiet steadiness. The warmth. And I thought about how that had been built, unknowingly, on a graveyard of untold stories. Was he truly trying to build something with me? Or was I a plaster for a wound that never healed? That night, I didn't go home. I stayed in a small inn by the river, where no one knew my name and the walls didn't whisper memories. I needed time. Time to think. Time to breathe. Time to decide what I was going to do now that I knew everything. Because once a lie unravels, it never stops at just one thread. I returned to the house 3 days later. Not because I was ready, but because I needed closure. The place felt cold, like it had been holding its breath without me. The flowers in the vase had wilted. Dust had settled on the windowsills. But everything else was exactly where I left it. Oliver wasn't home. That suited me just fine. I went to the attic, the one place I never dared enter during our year together. He always kept it locked. Claimed it was filled with old junk. But now, the key sat in the kitchen drawer, where he must have carelessly left it. I stood at the foot of the attic stairs, my hand trembling slightly as I slid the key into the lock. The door creaked open. Dust swirled as I stepped in. Boxes stacked haphazardly lined the narrow space. Some marked Celeste. Others unlabeled. A faint smell of damp paper and time greeted me. I opened the first box. Old photographs. Celeste in a white dress, laughing. Celeste and Oliver on a boat. Celeste with a baby bump. It twisted something deep in me, something raw and angry. Then I found it. A navy blue envelope, hidden beneath a bundle of scarves. My name written in Oliver's handwriting. But when I opened it, it wasn't his words. The handwriting was fine, delicate. It was Celeste's. To the woman who holds Oliver's heart now, it began. I don't know you. I never will. But I need you to understand who he was, and why I left. My hands shook as I kept reading. Oliver loved deeply. But he also clings. To people, to memories. After I lost the baby, I fell into a darkness I couldn't escape. I begged him to let me go. But he wouldn't. Not out of cruelty, but fear. He's afraid of starting over. Afraid of losing love. That's why he rushes in. That's why he never let go of this attic, this house, or the ring. He kept all of this because he didn't know how to grieve properly. And I couldn't teach him. I left because staying meant drowning. Maybe with you, he can learn to breathe again. The letter slipped from my fingers. I sat on the wooden floor, the attic pressing in around me like a coffin of forgotten memories. So that was it. Celeste hadn't just walked away from love. She had walked away to save herself. And Oliver? He hadn't truly moved on. Not in his heart. Not in this house. I looked around the attic again. Saw the life he had locked away, yet never truly let go of. Photos. Notes. Mementos. Pieces of a love that still lingered in the shadows. And here I was, building a life on top of it. I stood up, slower this time. I left the letter where it lay. It wasn't mine to keep. But the truth was now mine to carry. Downstairs, the door opened. I heard his footsteps. Amelia. I didn't answer. Not yet. I needed to decide. Would I stay and fight for a love haunted by ghosts? Or walk away and finally let those ghosts rest? The next morning, I left before sunrise. I didn't tell Oliver. I couldn't. Not until I figured out what I truly wanted. My feet led me to the old stone bridge over the River Avon, where he had once knelt and promised me the world. It felt like a lifetime ago. I stood there, fingers wrapped tightly around the ring. The same ring Celeste had once worn. The same ring I had believed was mine alone. The wind tugged at my coat. The river shimmered in the soft morning light. I could hear the faint rustling of leaves, the call of a distant bird. Everything around me was calm, peaceful. Inside, I was anything but. I thought about the letter. About Celeste's words. About Oliver's grief. And about the version of him I had fallen in love with. He wasn't cruel. Just lost. And I had tried so hard to be his lighthouse. But maybe some storms couldn't be guided through. Maybe some men had to learn to find their own way. I looked at the ring again. A simple gold band with that engraved name. Celeste. It was the final thread tying me to a love built on echoes. I had planned to toss it into the river. Let the current carry away what no longer belonged to me. But when I raised my hand, something stopped me. It wasn't just about the ring. It was about me. What did I want? Revenge? Closure? Peace? I dropped my hand. Instead, I took out the velvet box it came in. I placed the ring inside, closed it gently, and sat it down on the stone ledge of the bridge. Let him find it. Let him decide what to do with it. This story wasn't mine to finish. I turned and walked away. Halfway across the bridge, I heard footsteps behind me. Amelia. Oliver's voice. Breathless. Panicked. I didn't stop. Wait. Still, I walked. He caught up. Grabbed my hand. His face was pale, his eyes rimmed with red. I found the letter, he said, voice trembling. I said nothing. I never meant for you to see it that way. I was holding on to her because I didn't know how to let go. But with you, I wanted to try. I swear I did. I pulled my hand away. I know, I said softly. But trying isn't enough anymore. He swallowed, hard. I love you. But you still love her too, I replied. His silence was the answer. I gave him one last look. One that carried every memory, every laugh, every shared silence. Then I turned and walked away for the last time. 2 months later, the rain fell gently over the village green. I stood beneath a white marquee at Rosewood Hall, surrounded by the quiet hum of conversations and the sweet scent of early summer blooms. My dress, cream lace with soft sleeves, floated lightly as I moved. There was no veil. No long aisle. No string quartet. And no Oliver. This wasn't a wedding in the traditional sense. It wasn't about proving anything to anyone. This was about me. About reclaiming the dreams I had abandoned. About celebrating the woman I had become when no one was watching. About showing up for myself in the most honest way I knew how. Friends gathered, not out of obligation, but because they'd seen me survive and rise. Aunt Sylvia was there, beaming like I'd won a war. Even Grace, my former co-worker from the cafe, turned up with a bouquet of wildflowers and teary eyes. There was no ceremony. No vows. Just a small platform and a single mic. I stepped up, heart pounding, and looked out over the crowd. Not a soul was missing who mattered. "My name is Amelia Hart," I began, voice steady. "And today, I stand here not as someone's wife, not as someone's second choice, but as myself." The wind picked up slightly, brushing my hair from my face. For too long, I measured my worth by someone else's gaze. I was a reflection, not a person. But not anymore. A few soft claps echoed around the tent. I am not broken. I am not forgotten. I am not waiting to be chosen. I took a breath. Today is not a wedding. It's a rebirth. A quiet rebellion. A declaration that my dreams were never his to give, and my worth was never his to decide. The applause started slow, then grew into something real, something warm. Tears filled my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. I smiled instead. A true, hard-earned smile. Later that evening, I walked alone through the garden. The lights twinkled like stars, and laughter spilled from the tent behind me. A different kind of love filled the air. Love for life, for friends, for self. I paused near the rose arch where, months ago, Oliver had once promised me forever. I no longer stood in that shadow. Instead, I walked forward into the night, carrying only what was mine to keep. My story. My strength. And my name.